For those who don't know me, my name's Michael. I work at a company called List in London, and I've been a developer since Windows NT meant new technology. I've been a team lead for about as long as the App Store has been around. And, well, my story starts last year, really, at a different conference, a conference called Command R that was in London. And at that conference, I talked about monocultures in software engineering and the problems that I saw with that. And after I finished talking, Mike Lee came up to me and he shook my hand and he said something like, "Welcome to the other side." And then Chris Heidoff came up to me and he said, "Well, how do we fix this?" And I was pretty starstruck, to be totally honest, like Chris Heidoff, like, no, amazing. But it also kind of left me with a question, which is like, if I have gone over to this other side and if I have shone a light on a situation that I see in our community, like what am I going to do about it? So this talk is kind of partially the answer to that. I'm still formulating the rest of the answer. So as I look around, I see a fair few people that I actually know, which is quite a nice surprise. I see some that were actually at Command R as well. Is Daniel here yet? No, so Daniel was actually the organizer of Command R. He'll be here later. Hopefully by the end of this week I'll have got to know a lot of you, as well as I know those people. But those people who do already know me, they'll know that I really like to talk shop. Specifically, I like to talk shop over excellent wine or craft beer. Since we're in the Rioja region, as we heard, I think it will probably be wine this week, which is totally fine by me. And that's really where this talk started, in a pub with friends and colleagues. And if I'm really honest, it's where I'd really like to give this talk as well. But it's Wednesday morning and it's sunny outside, and if I tried to get you all drinking, I'd probably be escorted from the venue right now, so we'll wait for this evening for that. But it's 2015, right? And we have tech, we have Flickr, and so I'm going to try and take you to the Great British Boozer. So, imagine, if you will, that this is England. Well, no, we're not really that England, but we are in Spain, so I thought a football reference was probably needed. More of this kind of England. So, we're in England, it's evening, it's after work, and we're in the pub. Maybe not that pub. Maybe this pub. This is actually my local pub near where I live. Oh look, there I am. So, we're in my local pub. Let's go back outside for a moment. And I say to you, fancy a quick pint? I'll get the first round. I'll get some crisps as well. So, are you all sitting comfortably? Hello? Are you all sitting comfortably in my pub?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent, good. So let's start with a little survey. Just put your hands up. Who here leads the team right now? Here, team leads? Good, good, good. And who here is in a team that actually has a team lead? So maybe about 25% in total. So that's about 25% of you, maybe a bit more, maybe 30%, who are actually affected directly by team leadership. And those of you who are the unled masses who are sticking it to the man, now is probably a great time to check email or Twitter, but maybe not, because here's the thing that I've learned along the way. So, we're in the pub, right? Remember in the pub. And we're chatting, and I say to you, guess what? What, you say? I've been promoted. Congratulations, you say. What to? And I say, team lead. And you say, so you take a sip of your pint, and over the top you perhaps innocently ask, so, have you ever done that before? No, I say. Very interesting, you say. So now you're reading CVs, and you're doing interviews, and then you hire some people, some great people, and everything returns to normal, right? Oh no, I spoiled the... Ah, good, no I haven't. So, Except that it doesn't return to normal because you're now the most experienced developer on that project, which means you have to explain how it works, what the architecture is, and why you should probably leave those particular classes alone. No, just trust me, it works, all right? Just don't screw with that. And maybe your new developers are a bit less experienced with iOS than you as well. So now it's not just the project, but iOS. So you're having to explain design patterns, good quality, good practices, and maintain the code quality of the project. And that's before we even talk about things like probation and performance reviews and salary reviews and career development and one-to-one and all that kind of stuff. So here's the thing that I found, right? Few of us are actually natural-born leaders, despite how nice that sounds as a phrase. Most of us have to learn that. And in this kind of scenario, you're basically going to have to learn on the job. So what does that mean? Well, that means that yesterday, your decision to use a singleton mostly affects you. It may well be picked up at code review and challenged as a brave decision. Today, as a team lead, your decisions affect the whole team. They may go unchallenged, and they may be made from a position of little experience. Although I'd argue that singletons kind of fall into that category too most of the time. So, the first lesson that I learned is indeed just crept up onto the stage, which is that team leadership often creeps up on you. Ooh, too soon. So, not long after I was made a team lead for the first time, I was sent on a team management course. I got a certificate and everything. It's awesome. I learned loads of stuff, and then I realized that I needed to unlearn pretty much everything that I've been taught. And the reason is that I don't think team leadership is actually team management. But what is the difference then? Well, on that course, there was a woman who looked after a team of assembly line workers, like actually people who put stuff together. And we were talking about like team management techniques and how you should communicate with your team, how you should look after them, and so on and so forth. And she said, the only way to look after a team is to sit with them, which sounded good. Tell them what to do all of the time, so they don't make mistakes, and most importantly, so they don't slack off. When I'm asked what a team lead is versus what a team manager is, I say that I'm down in the mine, I'm at the coalface, and I'm with the team, and I'm helping the team to do their best work. Whereas the manager, he's up on the surface and he's trying to sell the coal. See, I think the best teams are self-directed and self-managed in the kind of way that Spotify advocates. And in that kind of scenario, well, I don't think a manager has a lot to do. But a team lead has so much to do. They're there helping the team to self-manage, self-organize, self-direct. I think a team lead is really crucial in that scenario. Which brings us quite neatly to decision-making. So I was in a team with 8 others, and each Friday we had a showcase and then a planning meeting. And to be really frank, they were very long, very contentious, and extremely toxic. So one Friday after an especially bad pair of these 2 meetings, I thought, I want to shield my team from this. This is horrible. They shouldn't have to go through this. So I went and spoke to management and I said, I think I should just attend these meetings on my own from now on. And they said, that's fine, that's a great idea. So I got back to my desk, sent an email to everyone confirming this change, went home, and I was feeling really great, like I'd made a really excellent decision. A week later, it was very clear that there was a big rift between the team and myself now. And then we had a retrospective. Oh boy. We had a retrospective, and the happy column was mostly empty. And that unhappy column, oh boy, it was like weighed down with post-it notes. And what did they say? They said things like, why am I not involved in decision-making anymore? Are you ashamed of us? I don't feel any sense of achievement anymore. What's the secret? Are you shelving the project? Don't you trust us anymore? I'd made a unilateral decision that I thought was for the best, but what I'd actually done was just move the team from one toxic situation to another, except actually this one was probably worse because they felt even more powerless than they did before. So I waited for the appropriate moment, and I just stood up in the retrospect, and I put my hands up, and I said, I unreservedly apologize. I made a terrible decision. Let's decide what to do as a team about it, and move on. What we decided to do was to reinstate the meetings. They were the best of a bad situation. Once we decided that, obviously, I suggested we go to the pub, and I'll buy the first round. But the thing that I learned from this, probably more than anything, was that that decision took minutes to make, and it took weeks to unpick. And in those weeks, the team didn't really trust me as much anymore. They were wondering, what other decisions I might be making. On another project, not so long ago, I worked with a developer who became sort of famous in the company for this kind of stream of, oh no, oh shit, ah fuck, that kind of came from his desk all day long. And the temptation to kind of slide over and give him help was like really, it was very hard to resist. But I did resist as much as I could, and the reward for resisting was that every so often the oh no would fade away, and then there'd be like, yes moment. We've probably all been there. Well, if I'd slid over every time, then I would have robbed him of those yes moments. It sounds kind of obvious, right? Like when you say it like that, but you try it. You try watching somebody make decisions that you think are wrong. It's really tough. What you need to do is give that person space, right? Just give them some space and wait for them to ask for help. And if they do ask for help, you need to be unjudgmental when you go over. But most importantly, as I say, wait to be asked. In the early days of being a team lead, I was privy to a lot of information that was very exciting. I was working at a startup, and we were in the kind of explosive growth period. And I suppose some of that information probably was sensitive, but most of it really wasn't. But I didn't tell my team because it made me feel kind of powerful and like in the know, which is kind of nice. What I didn't realize initially was that the team kind of knew that there were things that I knew that they didn't. And so over time, it built resentment and mistrust. Eventually, it dawned on me that it was actually easier to manage if I just told them things. I wouldn't have to remember what I'd said and what I hadn't said. And the most amazing thing was, it immediately removed this kind of power dynamic that I'd set up, and it evened us up again. And then, even better, over time, I kind of rebuilt the trust that I had eroded through this kind of web of sort of mild deceptions. I have a maxim that I tell all my teams now, which is that anything that I'm not explicitly told not to tell you, I'm going to tell you. I think that this sets the right tone for a team. It gives a strong sense of openness and honesty. And that work goes both ways. It sets up a really nice two-way relationship with your team. But, well, what if your team's not quite a team? I worked on another project where the team was very much separated into two camps. There was the super experienced engineers, and then there was a couple of very junior engineers. And I went on holiday for a week. I think it was a week. And when I came back, the two junior engineers, they'd kind of been paired off on their own, and they were told to do bug fixes. And it didn't seem like the worst idea. I mean, they could move at their own pace, and they support each other. But I already knew that the more senior engineers had actively avoided pairing with the juniors whenever possible. So I went over to these two developers, and I said to them, can you give me a little verbal progress report? It very quickly became clear that they'd essentially been set adrift. They'd been dictated what to do, and basically left behind. A little bit more digging, and it became very obvious that they were miserable too. They knew exactly what was happening, and frankly, they felt like crap. So I thought about this, and I thought, okay, I think I know what to do. So I started changing the pairs every few days, just kind of saying, oh, you with you, you with you. And it worked. The juniors immediately felt like they were actually an important part of the project again. And though I never actually had to talk to the seniors, they got the message very quickly. But what if it's not the juniors that feel like crap? You know? What if it's you? When I was younger, I used to think that it was fine, maybe even cool, I don't know, to emanate that kind of pissed off vibe sometimes, that kind of like hoodie up, headphones on, like just leave me alone thing. Irrespective of what you think of that as a member of a team, if you're a team lead, what you're doing is you're setting the tone for the whole team for that day. I remember one particular Friday, I came to work and looked at my calendar, and it was all meetings, and I was just in a mood straight away. So I was in a mood. I was making sure that everyone knew it. And then I noticed that one of the junior members of the team that I work with sat just to the corner of my eyesight, seemed to be very inactive. What's going on? What's wrong? They told me what was wrong. I snappily told them how to fix the problem and move on, and then basically kind of demanded to know, why they hadn't asked earlier. The response was, well, you have so much to do, and you look so unhappy, I just didn't want to interrupt you. They had something that I was totally lacking. They had sympathy. And it's not just a mood. If general negativity, bitchiness, prejudices, these are all infectious to your team. If you make it acceptable to be snarky, then expect to start seeing snarkiness in the rest of your team. If you have a bad day, ask yourself if you want your rest of your team to actually have a bad day. As an aside to that, to be honest, I didn't stop having moods straight away. I still have them to this day, as I'm sure my team would be more than happy to tell you. I think they're a bit more private than they used to be, and I try very hard to make sure that the team doesn't kind of be affected by my moods. But what really kind of shook me up and got me to think about this was when the head of engineering kind of noticed this, and they pulled me into a meeting, and they just said it to me straight. Stop polluting your team, or stop being a team lead. It's as simple as that. Sometimes you just have to have the difficult conversations. On one particular team that I was leading, there was a member of the team that I was told had a poor attitude and was upsetting people. HR said that I needed to reprimand them and to tell them that if things didn't change, it would be taken further. I thought about this, and I thought, I'm going to try a different tack. So I asked them, are you happy? And they said, yeah, I am. And I said, oh, that's interesting, because you're perceived to be very unhappy, and in fact, deliberately unhelpful. And they were really shocked, really shocked. And they asked for details. I thought, well, rather than give them details, I told them how I felt when I looked at their body language, and how I felt when they were very glib to me, when their tone of voice was very glib. I told them how I perceived them to be versus how I actually knew them to be. It wasn't long before I began to notice a change in this person, and in fact they came up to me and actually thanked me as well. They said that nobody else had ever said this to them before, but on reflection they think that had actually been evident for years. They've been going through company to company with this kind of emanating this vibe that just wasn't actually true. Sometimes we need to have those hard conversations. I think the great thing about being an engineer is that we're actually quite good at that stuff. We accept that we make bad decisions. We accept that sometimes good decisions are now bad and we have to change things. It's really liberating. But it is kind of a negative vibe too, I suppose, and it exports from engineering really badly. On one team, we had a chat channel, kind of like Slack. And the social team, they posted in it, proudly announcing that they'd launched their new blog. Well, engineers being engineers, within about 60 seconds, they'd found errors, image cache problems, and all the usual hate about WordPress. And then the channel went very quiet. And then we had a retrospective, and I raised this. And the general response was, well, yeah, the blog's great, but like, it has all these problems, and the image caching doesn't work properly, and WordPress, who chose WordPress? The thing is, the social team didn't hear the first bit. They only got the second bit. Do you ever write positive comments in code reviews? Do you compliment people when they write elegant code? If somebody performs really well in a meeting, do you tell them? Do you encourage people to speak up and to feel valued, particularly the very quiet people in your team? Criticism, I think, is kind of like, sort of like water on a mountain, right? It seems really insignificant, but give it enough time, it will wear away the mountain. Alternatively, you could just blow up the mountain. In another team that I entered, there were just 2 other developers, and they had this power dynamic that was pretty much invisible initially. But one of the team members went on a holiday for a week, and during that time, the one that was still in the office, they made a comment about their code being left alone for once. Seemed a bit odd. They seemed to be picking up a cold. So I asked some questions about this, and it became clear quite quickly that this teammate that was on holiday, basically they were reviewing the other teammate's code, which sounds reasonable, and any time they found it substandard, they just rewrote it. Didn't tell anyone, just rewrote it, checked it in. When they came back, I asked them about this, and they readily admitted their actions, said, well, they were saving the app from terrible code. So I said, well, thank you very much for caring and for taking the time. That's really important. But maybe in future, you might want to pair with the original author and fix the code that way. They strenuously objected, so I strenuously insisted. And the interesting thing was, they became much less enthusiastic about rewriting the other's code after that. So, something you might be picking up from my talk, and those who know me already will definitely know this. Like, I love having friends who are developers too. I suspect that's true of all of us. But sometimes that can come at a cost. I've actually had to let friends go, and I've had to turn friends down for a job. And that really tears me apart, to be honest. I don't really have any insight on this one. I just wanted to let you know that it really hurts like hell. I've been told by some people that you shouldn't have friends, that you have the power to fire. But that's not really me. I can't really do that. I make friends with people that I like. I think all I really can do in that situation is just remember that I'm not the woman managing the assembly line workers. And if this is a human failing, well, so be it. I'm good with that. Well, I'm almost out of time. I am indeed. I just wanted to cover off what I consider to still be my worst failing. So you remember that "oh no" from earlier? Well, sometimes there was no yes moment. Sometimes it was just more "oh no." But here's the thing. If I was a better lead, I would have listened to their problem. I would have helped them find a solution. And I'd have left them alone at that point. But all too often, I kind of felt like I had to give them the solution. Even though I was deep in my own work, running between meetings, whatever it was, so I was distracted. And because of that, I would often misdirect them, or I would sound really offhand and dismissive. And the first destroys time, whilst the other one destroys confidence. What I'm trying to do about it at the moment is to remember to kind of pause when people ask me questions, and see if I can use that pause to think more carefully about what I say. Well, I've kind of bared a bit of my soul there, and you've probably seen that I've made quite a few mistakes over the last few years. I think I've had some successes too, though. Like a good engineer, I've kind of learned things and I've iterated. And I think I'm probably a better engineer now than I was a year ago. And hopefully in a year's time, I'll be a better team lead than I am now. Of course, having told you all this, I probably close down every chance that I have of a job opportunity in the future that involves team leadership. And I am obliged to say that List is hiring for my team, so I would be your team lead. But what I want to leave you with is that this isn't about me, this talk. This is about people. See, I've upset people, and I've made them happy, and I've made amazing friends, and I've actually hurt those friends as well. And I've been called everything from a sexist man to a small hero. And because of all of this, I've affected people's careers. So let me say that again. I have affected other people's careers. This is one of the things that you will do as a team lead, and you must never take that lightly. And so, we are still in the pub, or my imaginary pub, a glass of Rioja, or a nice craft beer, and as is often the way at the end of any kind of long pub session, it's time for a little philosophizing over the final dregs as they ring the bell for last orders. I don't really have all the answers, and certainly not in half an hour. I'm not even sure what all the questions should be yet. What I do have is these stories, and by telling them, hopefully I can help you guys to not make the same mistakes that I've made. Maybe this week you'll have some stories to tell me, so I can not make the same mistakes that perhaps you've made. The only thing I really know is that if we talk about this stuff, then we could create a community and support each other. If we're more open about this kind of thing, then when we take on a role that includes leadership, then we would feel less alone. And if we tell stories, then maybe we can engender some empathy and some sympathy, whether that's as a team lead or as someone who's being led. Well, in my imaginary bar in my head now, they're ringing the bell for last orders. So I'm just going to leave you by saying thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the bar. I think I was asked if I wanted to do questions, but it's up to you. Nope.